Hi, Batman. I came here today to the Batcave to ask you for your help. There's a giant penguin in Gotham City. Batman. He's driving everybody crazy. You gotta stop him now.
All right, let me ask you a question. First of all, how'd you get in the Batcave? Second of all, is it like a real penguin or just like a guy in a penguin suit? I'm confused.
I don't know, Batman. All I know is he's driving everybody crazy. And you gotta help us, Batman. Now.
All right, let me just ask you one more time. First of all, how'd you get in the Batcave? Second of all, is this like a real penguin or is this like a guy? He's just like running around Gotham City in a penguin suit? I don't know. What is it?
Batman. I just told you. I don't know. But you gotta help us all. Now.
You're listening to the Mike Kara radio program, Eye on the Nation.
Well, welcome back to our next segment of this edition of the Mike Kara radio program, Eye on the Nation. We definitely have our eye on the nation, as always, proudly broadcasting from Ocoee, Florida, USA, planet Earth. And, of course, this being National Law Enforcement Month here on the Mike Kara radio program, Eye on the Nation, we want to showcase and feature different aspects of law enforcement. And my next guest is Mr. Robert Wells, who is the founder, instructor, and advisory board member of the National Maritime Law Enforcement Academy. The National Maritime Law Enforcement Academy provides education and training for law enforcement personnel as well as for the critical infrastructure industries located on or near the maritime environment. And besides providing tactical operations within an agency, this education also covers the coordination among applicable agencies at times of catastrophic events, exercising the National Incident Management System. And in just a minute, Robert, we're going to translate that all into English. But I want to, first of all, say that our audience is going to get an education that what you do is so varied and there's so many aspects to it and the scope is so big. But to get an idea there, right here in Ocoee, we have, of course, Stark Lake. And now I'll often see actually I'll see the cops and I'll see the police boat going around. I mean, that's kind of what you do. I mean, that's kind of a good place to start then. One of the things that you do is you educate law enforcement, such as land law enforcement, how to kind of patrol on, in the water environment. Is that right?
Well, that's basically it in a nutshell. And the academy was designed to pretty much serve those who serve and protect in the maritime law enforcement venue. And that is from the baseline, helping the public with their boating safety education, and the promotion of the boating safety with associates like the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, and really giving the police officers the tools necessary to function safely and effectively in the field. And that could take on boating accident investigations. It could take on boating under the influence. We've had some amazingly tragic incidents that have occurred around the country with BWIs in the past, and just educating the public is an important part of what we do. But helping the officers better serve and protect is the core essence of the Academy's mission. The Academy was founded back in 2000, and having been an old instructor from the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, and helping with the Marine Division down there, and a master instructor with the Coast Guard, we have about 361 ports around the country. And between the Coast Guard at Yorktown and the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Georgia, before the big Charleston facility was established, we were only training around 250 to 300 agents and officers every year. And it's a very, very small number. Although the training is the best in the world, we just weren't getting it out to the number of personnel who really needed it. So Admiral Owen Seiler, former Commodore of the Coast Guard, and I had a cup of coffee and a pecan pie down in Savannah, Georgia, and started talking about the concept when I was still teaching at the FLETC in Georgia. And he he said, this is a good concept, helping as a nonprofit organization to get this high-quality training out to state and local officers that wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity, and keeping the cost down so the taxpayers don't get gouged in the process is also a strong consideration of ours. So we're able to do our training, by giving certain grants and making it affordable to get down and get these guys the basic safety and survival skills that they need to effectively do their mission.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, Robert, let's talk a little bit about that process. So I use my example of my hometown in Ocoee, and we mentioned Stark Lake and all that. So somebody, that is interested, the department is interested then in training them, with that type of environment. So the first step is that they come to your academy, and then there's a certain amount of training. Can you tell us how that works?
Sure. Well, here's the beautiful part. We like to say we're an academy without walls. All of our training is exportable. We don't believe that training agents and officers on the most high-end effective equipment possible in a given venue, like, let's say, our headquarters out of D.C., inland lakes and waters, or offshore near coastal, it's hard to mirror that. It's best to use the agency's assets and resources that they already have. I can train for the sake of one officer or agent going to Flood City or the Coast Guard. I can probably train their whole Marine Division and other sister agencies in their own backyard using their own assets and resources by sending my instructors to them. And that optimizes their utilization of what they do have in their maritime side of the house already, and allows the officer to better understand the capabilities of the equipment that they're using. And in conjunction with that, we also assess what they have in their back pocket now, and are able to assist with grant writing and ways to guide them into getting equipment that is most appropriate for their mission. It could be somewhere on the Mississippi River, somewhere in the Gulf Coast, in U.S. Virgin Islands or Hawaii. All of these waters are react and behave a little different, and there are certain considerations that the officer has to take into account to be safe and effective. So those are that's kind of the mission of our organization, is to go to them, keep the cost down, train as many people as possible, because let's face it, training budgets are usually minimal at best. They're usually the first thing to get cut in an economically strained environment, especially that we're living in now. So, getting high quality, effective training is very, very challenging. And rather than chop one officer or agent to go to a venue for a week, 2 weeks, or a month to get advanced training, and like I said, nobody does it better than the Coast Guard and the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. Scott Curley's group down in Charleston does an amazing job, and they're the best in the world. But we like to think that by taking the standards that they have already set, and what the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators have been recognized for in bringing about consistency throughout the maritime law enforcement community in the operations, the procedures, the tactics, the protocols that have been found as best practices, we like to go ahead and give that to the agencies right there in their backyard. And we've been pretty successful in the past and pretty effective. We've got about 4,600 and some odd officers that we've trained in the last decade plus, in the last 12 years. And they keep calling us back. Something seems to be going pretty good. It's working pretty well.
Right, exactly, Robert. So yeah, we were talking about one of the big things we know is with boating is the DUIs, and so I mean there is special training and special ways then to pull over a boat. I mean it's a little different than a car then.
Different. When you're dealing with the subject, let's say that. I was an old special agent with the Coast Guard Intelligence Division. They call it Coast Guard Investigative Service now. But when I was working, we would, in conjunction with organized crime, drug enforcement task force, or drug interdiction operations, when you end up arresting an individual, be it DUI, boating while intoxicated, or a drug incident afloat, all of a sudden you're on an unstable platform to begin with. The subject is on an unstable platform. You handcuff that individual, and all of a sudden you're responsible. If these people go overboard, which, believe it or not, some people have tried to jump overboard. I don't know how they expect to swim away in handcuffs, but it's been known to happen. And so the moment you put a person in restraining devices, you are liable for their safety and well-being. So there's a protocol in place to effectively handle that subject, move him from one vessel to another, make sure that he's got a proper flotation device on, so that if something does happen to where the boat goes over, he's not latched to it, or has a good chance of having the officer take him and keep him safe in transit back to be duly processed. So yeah, there are a lot of considerations when you on shore. When you have a tactical group that's going in and they're doing sweeps of a house, you'll hear them come through and say, "Okay, they're clear. The rooms are clear," and they continue their search of the house, executing a warrant of some sort, or whatever the case may be. On a vessel, it's a very, very different environment. You have a lot of voids, hidden compartments, hatchways that go up and down and sideways, that you have to take into consideration. So when you go in and see no one in a compartment aboard a ship, doesn't necessarily mean that room is clear. So making it safe and secure and fully clearing it, that's one of the things that we do. Is we take groups, for example, SWAT team members, and put them afloat. We don't reteach them how to do SWAT tactics. That's redundant. What we do is allow them to get their sea legs and educate them on some of the tactical considerations afloat, be it a large freighter. Give you a classic example. In Savannah, Georgia, several years ago, the Coast Guard was called to go out and intercept a vessel that had suspect illegal aliens on board, and there was supposed to be a good number. So I got a call from a young petty officer, and he goes, "Bob," he goes, "what do we do?" He goes, "Marine Safety Office doesn't have enough personnel, to go out and do this ship. It's going to take a lot of manpower." So they've been working effectively with the Savannah Police Department, and had their Marine Division as well as their SWAT team. They'd done some cross-training for drug interdiction scenarios. So they called the local police department out, and they assisted the Coast Guard. And guess what? They brought the vessel in. They boarded the vessel at sea. They brought it in. They swept it, and they found individuals on board. So that was a classic example of federal law enforcement working effectively with state and local to achieve a common goal, and that's enforce the laws of the U.S. and the local jurisdiction. So those are the things that we try to promote when we come into a state or local environment. It's usually with the idea that we'll have a police department or sheriff's office host us, or a state police organization host us, and then we will invite other officers from other maritime law enforcement groups to the table and be able to train and work effectively. That way, everyone knows everyone else, everybody knows what each other's capabilities are, what their assets and resources are, so that if, in the case of a flood, for example, be it a Katrina-type scenario or floods that we've seen along the Mississippi year after year, we can go in and train your flood rescue to where, when these situations occur, we see and we find and we train towards these incident management systems that have been in place now for the nation post 9/11. It actually works, and we practice to that, and it's been found to be quite effective. And the agents and officers that are working in the maritime environment oftentimes get it because they have a ski boat, or they used to be in the Coast Guard, or used to work on a tugboat on the Mississippi, and so we take those basic skills that they have and we hone them and fine-tune them and give them the tools that they need to better serve the community. and we like to think we do it pretty well.
Yeah, that definitely sounds great there. So yeah, Robert. So the whole thing is, as we were mentioning, that you actually could come then to where they where you're training. And one thing especially, I'm sure I'm not sure if the Kauai Police Department has done this training, but I think it would be cool if you could see Stark Lake, because there is a lot of different issues, to say the least, there. So I mean, I think it's great when you actually could come to the location so you could see with what you're dealing with then.
Yeah, exactly. In the community, when they see an officer out there on the water, they shouldn't panic. These guys are there for your safety and protection, and they're just looking out to respond if something does go bad. If your boat breaks down, if somebody gets injured, these guys are right there to respond and give a hand. And be it a lake or an inland waterway or a river, it doesn't matter. No matter if you've got one boat with your department or whether you've got a fleet, we can come in and assist. Classic example is Jefferson County in Missouri. We did some flood rescue training for these guys, and at the time we did the training, the rivers were swollen over the banks, so it was a perfect venue to do the training. And on the job training, as the case was in this particular situation. And they had one boat that they'd gotten on a Homeland Security grant that had sat there for 2 years. Nobody had been adequately trained on it. So we got their entire division out and a few extra officers, and we put them through some flood rescue training, and turned out to be a good week's worth of training. So, and they were trained in all aspects, not just in vessel operations and engineering, but just basic rescue operations and some of the hazards that are inherent with these type of flood scenarios.
Oh, Robert, and yeah, we were saying that you work with people, organizations around the world. And I understand that you work with police forces and even in other countries. Is that right?
Yeah, we've been asked to assist other organizations and big companies and governments to assist in helping with police training, their maritime law enforcement issues, West Africa, Middle East, a few other places here and there. So we've really like to focus on the domestic, but when it comes to our homeland security issues, our homeland security starts abroad. When these vessels are being loaded with containers to come to the United States, if we're making sure that those containers are clean and safe prior to their de-embarkation to come to the U.S., we're that much safer. So we have been very, very active in assisting organizations, companies, and nations with their port security issues and with some of their maritime law enforcement and actual police training. One thing about Coast Guard guys, they've are a unique organization. They're under a military code of justice, uniform military code of justice, are paid like the military, a part of the armed forces, but they're under the Department of Homeland Security. So the training that they get is bar none. And some of our Coast Guard guys make great police officers when they get out of the Coast Guard service and enter into to civilian life because of the training that they got initially with the U.S. Coast Guard. But working abroad it's very satisfying when you see something that needs to be done there. These governments are usually very eager to get to where they need to go, and it's great to see the kind of progress that we can do on the ground there. Where at home sometimes we have a few issues and due process that we have in order to get to where we want to be, and we find it very rewarding working abroad.
And I'm sure, Robert, when you work with all these different organizations, there's different levels. I'm sure there's situations where they want to know specific things, or there's maybe an organization or police department that wants to start from scratch. So, I mean, you probably have different levels of training then?
Well, exactly. We do maritime law enforcement assessments. We'll come in and we'll see what you have in your division, and we'll evaluate it. I'm not going to mention any names of any departments, but there have been times where we've actually gone in and they have a beautiful facility, great dock space, but their boats are very old Coast Guard utility boats. They're being held together by bubblegum and Band-Aids. Life jackets are not up to code, even though they're the ones that are supposed to be enforcing these codes. And we assist them in identifying what they need and help them to get monies for the equipment that they need to better serve the community. And in a couple of venues, we've actually gone before the city councils and made a pitch. And it's worked out well. They've got new boats and the right tools to better keep the waterways safe. And it's worked out pretty well that way. And on the flip side, if these marine divisions are really amazing, and there are some amazing marine divisions out there, East Coast, West Coast, Gulf Coast, that do an amazing job. Their equipment is leading edge. And what we'll do is we'll go in and provide training to the officers to be able to handle the equipment that they have in their backyard more effectively, and optimize the officer's safety and survival skills when he's out doing his job.
Okay, Robert. And now I think myself and our audience is wondering. Now we're talking about companies and law enforcement agencies, but I mean, do you have any training for civilians or a citizen maritime academy or anything like that, or?
We haven't, but our one of the organizations that has been around for over 50 years that I admire, and we're blessed to have them around our table, is the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators. Now, this is an organization where every state boating law administrator is a part of around the country. The Coast Guard has a very close relationship with them. They have education and training that is bar none for the private citizen. Organizations like the Power Squadron or the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary are amazing examples of public-private assistance and cooperation, and all have very, very wonderful training programs, from vessel operations to go in, have your vessel inspected by the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and learn about what you need on board to be safe with your family out as you're enjoying an afternoon on a lake or a river offshore. And so these are organizations that have specific missions, and they do it, and nobody does it better. And the public can enjoy the fruits of that. Our focus is on those who serve and protect, and those are the folks that we serve, so that the communities can feel much safer after our having been there. And when they see our seal, they know that these guys have got some of the best training in the world. So.
Oh, well, that sounds good, Robert. As we were mentioning, now I want to let our audience know that your organization is a non-for-profit organization, and I'm not sure if it runs on tax money. Is it privately funded, or?
No, one of the things we don't do, the only tax monies that we'll take may be already in the training coffers of the organizations that we serve. And typically what we do is I've been blessed with the ability to contribute to offset certain monetary deficiencies that certain agencies might have in their training coffers. So we only exist on what little monies exist within the training budgets within the organizations that we serve, and we're supplemented through private funds. We don't like to take the taxpayers' dollars. Fact is, that's what we're trying to do, is save the taxpayers' monies and better utilize the monies that they have dedicated to getting their officers trained and kept up to par.
Okay. And yeah, we want to let everyone know, Robert, that you have a website, and that's got more information on it about all that you do?
I do, and we've just expanded over the last couple of years with an organization called PortStar, and that's designed to meet the Code of Federal Regulations for not just law enforcement, but for any of the private sector industry concerns. Petrochemical plants, any port facilities are required to have training for their facility security officers, domain awareness training for their employees, etc. We've got a very cost-effective online and/or instructor-led program that we've been promoting now. It was born of a $6.2 million grant out of Florida State University, and it was coined as PortStar, and it rolled out just a couple of years ago. And it's been we were fortunate enough to have several members of our academy, as well as Coast Guard, MARAD. Many of the industry members themselves came in and assisted in the design of this program. And frankly, I don't think there's a better program than PortStar that's on the market today. And that's all due respect to anybody who's in the business of training in port security. But it is a very unique and is a brilliant program, and that's why we've embraced it and have put it forward. But yeah, so we're helping industry in this arena too. And you can find all of our operations and training at www.nmlea.org, and that's the National Maritime Law Enforcement Academy.org. And we're very blessed to have an amazing group of individuals around our table and our advisory board. We're pretty much governed by our advisory board, frankly. The direction and guidance that they give us keeps us at the leading edge of the new and different changes and challenges that we have within the maritime law enforcement community.
Oh, fantastic! So yeah, that sounds good there, and we appreciate all the good work you're doing. I encourage everyone to check out the website, and if there's organizations out there that are looking for that service, that you provide, that they can contact you then.
Well, they can contact me, and you can contact me directly. There's a link on the website. They can shoot a note to me. I'm going to get everything that comes across the board. And we'd love to respond and to be of assistance to whoever we may. And yeah, thank you so much for having us on board today. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak during National Law Enforcement Month.
Sure, my pleasure. Okay, and any other thoughts, sir?
Well, I tell you, just be safe out there, and may the winds always be at your back, and may you always have a following sea, and be safe above all things when you're enjoying the wonderful waterways that we have around this blessed country of ours, and take time to appreciate the resources that we have, and be a good steward of not just the environment, but of safe boating principles for everyone. Okay.
Okay, my guest has been Robert Wells, and you've been listening to the Mike Care radio program, Eye on the Nation, and please catch us again next time.